Hi, my name is Ralph and I'm an alcoholic. Day 2, episode 2. As expected, it cost me quite a bit to come back, but yeah, here we go. Episode 2, April 14th, and today's topic is resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. That's from the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, page 64. Well, let's see. It took me a while to really grasp what that line meant. I used to think resentment was just part of life, something everyone carried around. I didn't realize how much space it took up in me or what it was costing me to hold on to it. In the beginning, when I heard that resentment could destroy me, it felt a bit dramatic. But over time, I started to see it. Not in one big collapse, but in little ways. The way my energy drained, how I ruminate for days, the way I could snap at people I actually cared about. I didn't have peace, and I definitely didn't have perspective. I had scorekeeping, bitterness, and the feeling of being stuck in a loop I couldn't get out of. One resentment that stuck with me for a long time happened just as I was ready to get out of active addiction. I needed help, not a miracle, just someone to show up and give me a hand with organizing a few things. There was a friend, or so I thought, who talked the big game, said all the right things, promised support, but when it came down to it, he was a no-show. Nothing got done, and what made it worse was that I had to scramble to reorganize the help I so desperately needed at the time, while I was already hanging on by a thread only. That really hurt. I was vulnerable and I relied on someone who just didn't come through. It caused me a lot of distress and I carried that disappointment for a while. But eventually, I had to look at the bigger picture. This guy wasn't really a friend. He was a drinking buddy. And maybe he wasn't in a place to help. Maybe he had his own mess going on. Either way, he's not part of my life anymore. Not because I still resent him, but because he just doesn't belong in the sober life I'm living now. That chapter closed many years ago. I'm now 19 years in recovery, and back then I just moved on. When I looked at my resentments during early recovery, I realized how much weight I'd been carrying in the form of old anger, pride, and fear. Sure, sometimes I had every right to feel hurt, but I learned that being right doesn't make resentment useful. There is there's something exhausting about nursing a grudge. You think it's protecting you, and really it's just dragging you back into the past over and over again. I can't grow if I'm too busy replaying how someone else failed me. What shifted for me was realizing that the person I resented probably had no idea, or maybe they just didn't care. Either way, they weren't spending their time replaying that moment or losing sleep over it. I was the one burning energy on something long gone. And that's when I realized, when it clicked, the problem wasn't with them, it was with me. If I could honestly say, yes, that happened. I didn't like it, but I accept it, and I can't change the past. Then something in me loosened up. The grudge didn't serve a purpose anymore. That's then I felt real freedom. My mind stopped looping the same old story. I could finally stay in the present, not drag back to a situation that has no business shaping my life anymore in the present or the future. And some of the hardest resentments were the ones I felt most justified in holding, the ones where I got hurt and nobody ever apologized. That's where the program gave me something practical, a path to move forward even when nothing gets resolved the way I wanted. Sometimes I still catch myself going back there, rehashing, rewinding, wishing things had gone differently. But now I know what to do with that. I pause, I breathe, I write, I call someone. I do a lot of things not to entertain that sort of thinking that poisons my mental well being. I remember that my peace isn't worth sacrificing just to be right. The big book says resentment blocks us from the sunlight of the spirit. I've lived that. And I've lived the other side too. The one where you finally put something down that you've been dragging around for years. And suddenly there's room in you for something else. Clarity, compassion, actual joy. That shift, that first real taste of spiritual sunlight, didn't come as a lightning bolt for me. It came in small, quiet moments. And even now, I still struggle with certain people. I catch myself expecting them to change, to grow, to somehow act differently, even though I know I freaking can't change anyone. It's frustrating, and yeah, sometimes it hurts. But the difference today is that I notice it. I recognize when I'm drifting toward resentment. And instead of letting it take root, I stop and put the situation in context. I remind myself that their behavior isn't about me. And I don't have to carry it around. That's the shift. Not perfection, but awareness. A bit more light than there used to be. I used to think forgiveness was something you did for other people. Now I think it's mostly something I do so I can live with myself. Not perfectly, but honestly. With a little more light and a little less noise. And that's enough. Yeah, and that's it for today. My name is Ralph, and I'm an alcoholic. Have a great day.